Welcome to the Generous Business Owner Podcast, where business owners gain inspiration and encouragement to live a legacy, not just leave one. And now your hosts, Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's Generous Business Owner Podcast. My name's Jeff Thomas, and we've got our co-host with us, Jeff Rutt, today. Say hello to the people, Jeff.
Hello to the people.
Hello to the people. And the first two people we'll greet are our special guests this week, Creek and Sarah Stewart. They have all kinds of outdoor businesses and survival training businesses to talk about. And so this is going to be a fun one, folks. Hold on to your hat. Thank you to Creek and Sarah for being with us. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
It is our pleasure and honor.
All right, Jeff, get us started.
Yeah. So Creek and Sarah, tell us about first of all, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for your partnership with Hope International. Thank you for your generosity just in general and the way you've lived a generous life. And it's just inspiring for me to just hear your story, but share with our listeners a little bit about the early years. What was it like growing up? And, how did you guys meet? Tell us a little bit about the formation of the story as it develops here.
Yeah, great question. So we both grew up in church.
Mm-hmm.
We both grew up. We're from Christian homes and, Bible believing families. And it's really interesting because we met at a job fair in our 20s, and we dated for, I like to say 8 months.
8 years.
He says 8 years. So
8 years.
You decide which one it is.
There's another.
I think we're pretty sure which one's right. Yeah.
So we got married, and it's interesting, Jeff, because you say you live generous lives, but we don't really feel that way. We feel like it hasn't been until, for me, I'm 47 now. It wasn't until my early 40s when I felt like, as I look back, most of my life I've been so lukewarm in my relationship with Jesus, and so to hear you say you live generous lives, I don't feel that way about my life, until just recently, and we are very, very excited about our newfound lease on life that we have found within the past 8 to 10 years. And it feels starkly different than, even though we grew up in Christian homes and going to church our entire life, the way we feel and the way we live now feels very different than that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Tell us more about that transition when that you kind of turned that page.
Yeah, so we're going to get real deep real quick here, okay?
You can cry.
We're going to get real personal real quick. So, our story is very personal, as is everyone's relationship with Jesus. But the transition from being a lukewarm Christian, living generally a very selfish life, to being a sold-out believer, believing that everything you own and everything you do is
not ours, right?
Not ours.
Yeah.
For us, at least, it comes down to what I would identify as two really critical life moments that have happened to us in the past 10 years. The first one, we were married for 5 years. That was really the pinnacle of my TV career during that 5 years. I was hosting, a hit television show, aired all over the country, now airing all over the world. I hear I'm big in China, but I'm not real sure about that. But
you were on the Today Show.
Yeah, I was on the morning show circuit. I can remember all of the big things, And it's ironic because I was at the highlight of my professional career. I had chased that. I had worked for that for, decades, but I was in a rock bottom personally in life. And it's so crazy to think that someone can be so high and so low at the very same time. I'll never forget, at the highlight of my career, we were at the lowest point in our marriage. You know, we had been married for 5 years. I wasn't living at home.
We had a newborn son.
We had a newborn son, and there were divorce papers on the kitchen table. You know,
Wow.
so it was our marriage was truly in shambles, and she was miserable, I was miserable. We both had parts to play in
We
all
didn't
of
know how to
that,
fix it.
and we didn't know how to fix it, and not sure that we even wanted to fix it in the moment, you know, and just so unhappy and so unsure. And I'll never forget, you know, one of the big, I'll try to do this without crying, one of the big turning points in my relationship with Jesus and in my life in general. She was out, I was essentially babysitting my newborn son, and I was holding him, and I walked by a mirror in my house, and I stared in the mirror, and just as sure as I'm sitting here talking to you, I heard God speak to me, and he said, "Creek, I made you to be a better man, a better father, and a better husband." And it really hit me. It really hit me like a ton of bricks. And I had been very backslidden at that time in my life. You know, it's interesting when you're on your mountain peaks in life and really comfortable, you don't feel like you need Jesus as much, you know. And I was at that place in my life where, for the first time, I was really, my relationship with God was really far. And I got on my knees and I said, "God," I said, I don't know what to do. You've seen the mess we've made. We don't know how to fix this, and we don't know how to go from here. If you want us to be married, then you have got to save this marriage." And it wasn't fast and it wasn't easy, but I stand here as a witness to the power of Jesus today, that
A miracle.
there was nothing else that could have saved our marriage than him and him alone.
Wow.
And he began to release grudges and
Hardened
hearts, and we began to fall in love with each other in a way that we never thought possible, and B, always really dreamt of, and began to be a partnership and a team like
you couldn't stop us.
Yeah, you know, and for me, Jesus showing up for us at that time in our life, that was like a major turning point for me. That was when God really started to work in my life. And that was my early 40s, you know. And so I began to really wrestle with God at that point in my life. And he started to really grab a hold of my heart and start taking me in directions that I had no idea. And I was in a season of waiting for a few years.
Wow. That's powerful. Now, you said there was two things.
Well, then a few years later, we had another daughter. We were pregnant with our second baby, Lakeland, and we were in our dream house on like our dream street in Carmel. So everything was going good, almost too comfortable. We were almost too comfortable. And then 6 months later, I got pregnant with another daughter who we were told was incompatible with life, and that she had a genetic disorder and she wouldn't probably make it to term. But she did. She made it to 39 weeks, and we had her for 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, she passed away. She came into our arms, and then she passed away in our arms.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now that's a thing that can rip a couple apart if they're healthy, to be honest with
Right.
you.
I know.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
we could have taken that direction very easily. You know, very easily we could have let Satan in and, you know, let him bring up old wounds and old disappointments and, you know, all of those things that had delusioned our marriage before.
Yeah.
But we chose not to. You know, we dug deep into our faith, and
More than we ever
and
had.
Jesus showed up for us again in such a powerful way and brought us closer together. But it was really the combination of that failing and then saved marriage and then the death of our daughter that
Changed us.
it was the straw that broke the camel's back. You know,
In a good way.
It changed us.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
we walked out of that hospital and
Different
we knew
people.
we were different people
Mm-hmm.
and that
Wow.
our priorities would never be the same again.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that meant. God began to kind of show us what that meant over time, but we didn't know, but we knew we were different. And we knew that our trajectory had just changed. I felt palpably like I don't want what I have had.
What we wanted before.
And what I wanted before. I don't want the things of this world.
We didn't want
I no longer valued what I was chasing and what I valued before. I began to value. I had a new set of values that were attached to the kingdom. I can't describe it.
Yeah. Wow. It's so true. God sometimes uses those valleys for growth. There's a lot of growth in the valleys. James 2:1-5, consider it all joy when you face trials of many kinds. Builds character, builds wisdom, and it draws us closer to him. And
it really did.
Was just life-changing for you. And your hearts were, yeah. So tell us about then where you went from there. It sounds like you were just like God had you right where he wanted you.
Yeah, he did. Even though it was a very confusing place for us, like we were grasping, like, what are you doing, God? Talk to us, give us, like, write it on the wall for us so that we know exactly what's going on.
And it never works. It never works like that.
So, but God began to really put the pieces together. So my dad's health has been failing with Alzheimer's for the past several years. So at that point in time, we made the decision to sell my training facility in Indiana and our home that was like our dream home. We decided we were going to sell everything and we were going to move home and build a house on the farm that I grew up on to be with my parents, which is a beautiful farm. It sounds like it could be a sacrifice, but it's not.
No,
it's a beautiful place.
It's not.
And so we had made the decision that we're going to sell the training facility, which God blessed us with 15 years before that. It was 21 acres, a 10,000 square foot building. No survival guy on the planet deserves to have such a beautiful piece of property and building. I always say that God had General Motors build the building so that they could abandon it later so that I could have it. And so I got it for a great deal as a foreclosure. It's one of the premium pieces of property in the region, not just the state of Indiana, but in the region. I mean, it is a showstopper. And so we decided we were going to sell that and go build a house. And about that time, I went on a men's retreat. It wasn't anything special, in fact, I can remember thinking that, I'm going to go and bless this men's retreat by going.
Teach them something.
Yeah, I might have, I've been a couple of TV shows, I'm going to show up at this, what I mean?
The celebrities coming to show them how to do it.
Yeah. That's literally the mindset that I have. Well, God had a totally different. I mean, he was about to wreck me. And so I went. It was hosted by some friends of the town I grew up with, and it was literally hosted in the middle of a cow pasture. No facilities, no building, no electricity, no running water. In order to set up our tents, we had to literally pick up and move cow pies. There was nothing special.
There would not be a women's retreat there.
Yeah.
Right. Men only. Got it.
But God showed up at that event. Like, I watched God move in the hearts of these men in the middle of nowhere.
With nothing.
Guys just getting baptized in a cow watering pond, at a property that is just borrowed. And I just sat there the whole event. And that event wasn't for me to bless anybody. That event was, I just sat there the whole event and I just felt so convicted that here I have this amazing piece of property and building. And I've had it for 15 years. And not once have I ever thought of even using it for God's kingdom or for God's glory. Not even once even thought about it, let alone actually doing it or letting someone do it. And so I left that event just like completely wrecked with that notion, that I've been given such an incredible asset, you know, that has so much potential to build into the kingdom, and I've done nothing with it. And so I came home just kind of, you know, just really struggling with that whole idea. And a couple of days later, Sarah and I, we woke up early, just one random like Tuesday
And I don't
morning.
wake up early.
Yeah. And we literally sat up and we looked at each other, and I swear, just like the same time we said, "You're not going to believe this, but you know, I felt like God told me last night that we need to sell Willow Haven and give that entire sum of money to ministry." And we thought about it for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, we didn't question
It
it.
was just undeniable that God was speaking to us, you know? I mean, I know it sounds weird, and maybe it would have sounded weird to me in my life 15 years ago, that God literally speaks to you in those moments. And some people may say I'm crazy, but God spoke to us.
Because we both said
only
the
way-
same thing.
And I felt so confident in it that I was willing just to commit to the idea on a whim. And we donated that property to the National Christian Foundation here in Indiana, and went through the sales process, and over the course of a few months ended up being able to donate. We sold it for almost $700,000, and we were able to donate about $650,000 of that to a ministry, a local ministry here, who builds into the lives of children. And
Wow.
And that felt good.
It set our hearts on fire.
Wow.
You know, like,
that's awesome.
to be aligned in what we felt was God's will, and for me to have redemption in that property. You know, God is a God of redemption. And for me to feel the redemption, like, maybe I didn't use that for 15 years, except for nothing but selfish gain, you know. But in that moment, I was like, now, you know, it appreciated by like 7 or 8 times, you know, and we were able to just joyfully give that. And I just felt such a sense of redemption. I mean, I was like, yes, you know, I don't have to live with just a feeling of like I should have and I could have. So I just did it.
Yeah.
And we just caught the fire, man. You know, like I was like, I want to feel like this more, you know.
Well, so then we did, and then tell about Hope International.
Yeah, and about that. See,
Yeah.
God was just kind of aligning all these things right on God's timing, right on the right time. Right about that time, we were introduced to John Reinhardt with Gospel Patrons.
Yeah.
And I met with John, and, you know, for the first time in my life, I heard this notion of Gospel Patrons. Like, you don't have to feel guilty for being an entrepreneur. You know, there are entrepreneurs and businesses that set themselves up to be a gospel patron to ministry.
Right.
And I never felt a calling to be a preacher or even a missionary. I never felt that. I always felt like a businessman, you know, and like an entrepreneur. And for the first time in the last 15 years, I really felt like I was given permission to be who God made me. You know, and to become and to figure out, how do I become a gospel patron? I loved this notion.
Yeah.
And then we run into Hope International.
Yeah.
And I connect with the message. We connect with the message of Hope International so much, about how Hope does microfinancing to help people start businesses in underdeveloped nations to provide for themselves and their family. I was like, baby, if there's anything that we can give our money to, it's this. It's like it combines everything we love and Christ-centered ministry. And so we took what was our biggest business at the time, which was a trade show printing company that I started years ago in order to fund my survival business while it was still an unprofitable hobby. And for years, I've been unhappy with that business. I
hated it.
I just wanted to close it down. I hated it.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
You're so good. Yeah, just start with, I hated it. Yeah.
For years. Yeah.
Yeah.
For years, I had been unhappy in that business. I hated it. I literally hated it. I never wanted anything to do with it. We talked about closing it down, getting rid of it. I had no passion for it. And so, you know, when we heard about Hope, God spoke to us again, and he said, the way to get passionate about this business is, take some money from this business and start giving it to Hope, start giving it to people who, start giving it to kingdom driven projects, so that you can be a part, so that you can be a gospel patron and play a part in the building of my kingdom. And so we did that. We started carving out a percentage of monthly sales from that business, and I started giving it to Hope, and I started getting excited about that. I'm more excited about that business than I am survival now, because I'm like,
that is so awesome. There's a real principle there, and your passion just grew because of the purpose behind the profit from that business. Yeah. It's so exciting. Thank you for that initiative and what you're doing, but it's so engaging and inspiring and life-giving to be able to be a part of that. And I think
it was really interesting when you were talking about kind of the 15-year process on the building of kind of the redemption of the property, and also kind of your personal redemption. And I was just thinking, like, people talk a lot about, even though you grew up in Christian homes, like you had that knowledge kind of in your head, but then, it's kind of got to go to our hearts, and like all those struggles.
We weren't using it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's hands. So like the releasing of that property, like, it's just like a beautiful symbol of kind of where you were on your walk with God, of releasing that. And that, isn't it cool how, like, I always think, Moses probably had to get wet before the sea parted, like, you got to do something, it doesn't just happen. Like, you got to get wet, and then you're like, oh, wow, the sea parted. Like, let's see that again. Right. So tell us about your other businesses, and how has this snowball continued?
And you got to at some point work in Fat Guys in the Woods. I mean, at some point you got to hear some stories.
Resemble that
remark. Yeah. So well, I mean, we have a lot of business. Most of our businesses are in the outdoor and wilderness survival space. I am first and foremost an entrepreneur. I'd say second, I'm a wilderness survival instructor. I've taught wilderness survival skills and classes for over 25 years. I've hosted 3 television shows, some that are airing internationally now and syndicated all over the U.S. I've written over 30 books at this point on wilderness survival and disaster preparedness. So most of our businesses have to do with that. I've got some subscription businesses within that space. We own a skincare line, which is a beef tallow-based skincare line. I have psoriasis, and so I believe the best products come from personal experience. And so we cooked up some beef tallow-based lotion one day in our kitchen, and that has now turned into.
Now we just put it all over our body.
Phenomenon. So we have
dogs
it
love
it. And it. We have it co-packed, and it ships all over the world. We always say God made it, we just package it. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, but we have, and then we still have held on to that Custom Banner Lab, which is a trade show printing company that, we look at as, as a big part of our gospel patronage. A quick God story that relates to giving that I always like to share, at least in these circles, is we also support John Reinhardt with Gospel Patrons, because it's such a mission that's so close to my heart. And I'll never forget the day I wrote my first donation check to John Reinhardt to Gospel Patrons. The same day we got an order on Custom Banner Lab from, I've signed an NDA, so I can't say the name, but it was for the exact same amount.
Wow.
It's a major online consumer brands product that everyone orders from.
Right.
Wow.
So they placed a huge order out of the blue, and have now become a huge customer, but they placed a huge order out of the blue, and it was for the exact same amount for the check I wrote to Gospel Patrons.
Wow.
And I just sat there, and I was just
so
like,
cool.
God, you just like send like these little
Confirming.
validations.
That's awesome.
Like, if I had any doubt before, which I didn't, I definitely don't have any doubt now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, we're going to put a link to that, to Gospel Patrons book in the show notes, as well
we've had
as
John on the program. We'll also refer to our podcast where he told his backstory, which is fascinating.
Yes. Yeah. But tell us more about Fat Guys in the Woods.
Yeah, so Fat Guys in the Woods was my first television show. And I wish I could claim that it was my idea, but it wasn't. It was the idea of a guy out in Los Angeles who took it to a production company and turned it into an amazing show. So I took 3 guys they didn't necessarily have to be fat. It was more a fat mentality. Okay. So 3 guys who were stuck in a rut in their life, and they just needed a kick in the pants. And the concept was, I'm going to take these guys out into the woods for 6 days, and I'm going to give them a huge dose of perspective so that they can begin to appreciate and chase after the things that they love and mean something to them back at home. And so I would take these 3 guys out in the woods, and we'd typically just have a knife, and we would just struggle for 6 days to find food and water and build shelter in the desert, in the swamp, in the snow, in the eastern woodlands, all over.
Eat nasty stuff.
And I didn't see it at the time, because that was really a time of my life when I was, I just was backslidden. I was just like, I was all about me. I was a very selfish time in my life. And, I didn't see God's hand in it at the time, but looking back, God works in such incredible ways, and he uses the wilderness. I always say, if you want to learn about the artist, study the art, and if you want to learn about the creator, spend time in creation.
Yeah.
And these guys had every right in the world to hate me after 6 days. They were starving. They were uncomfortable. They were hungry. They were thirsty. They were tired. But at the end of 6 days, they all ended with just a sense of awe. Like, I've done this. I'm going to go back home, and I'm going to change my life.
Yeah.
They also talk to you.
And we also talk. And, God just had a hand in that, like he has a way of allowing us to use creation to just bring about a sense of peace and perspective and happiness. And I don't have it figured out in my business yet, but that is where God is taking me. Like, I've asked God, like, God, why did you put me in wilderness survival? It's not just to have a passion for wilderness survival and teach wilderness survival skills. What is it that you want me to do with the past 25 years that I've done? Where am I headed from here? And I don't have that figured out. We've been wrestling, God's been working with me. I'm clearly not ready to hear the answer, but it has something to do with, my experience and knowledge of the wilderness,
100%.
using that to help transform people's lives in just a really powerful and undeniable way.
You're doing it right now. But before we leave that, we got to put in the show notes a couple clips of some of these are just amazing. Some of the things that you were involved in. Creek, before we leave that, what was the closest you came to getting, like, what's the worst time you had finding, like, sustenance, food or water? Like, how long did it go, and what was it like, the breaking point? How close to the breaking point were you?
We ate some nasty stuff, I think the desert, the Sonoran desert, we probably really scavenged the worst. We ate a rat, we ate a scorpion, we ate a tarantula, we ate a centipede. We got so desperate we were eating centipedes,
Okay. Did you cook them, or just they were just
we cooked them?
Okay, good.
We were able to get fire started.
They were charred.
I do have some skills. Foraging sometimes isn't the number one skill of mine. We feasted like kings in the Great Smoky Mountain. We were able to trap a wild boar in a huge pit, and boy, that was an eye-opening moment. Like, we trapped this big boar in a pit, and I took these 3 guys down, and one guy didn't go.
Right.
So I took 2 guys down into that pit with knives, and you talking about getting the perspective on where your food comes from. One of the guys became a vegetarian right there in the bottom of that.
Yeah, he did. He did.
The other guy, I promise you, he will never forget where his pork chops and bacon come from. And
the grocery
it's just such a powerful moment. I believe that everyone should understand the process that needs to take place in order to the food, whether it's plants or animals, to reach the plate in front of your face. We take so many things for granted.
Amen.
And because we take them for granted, we don't appreciate them.
Yeah.
And when you've got to fight, scratch, claw, and struggle to get something, a basic human survival need, you remember that, in the good times in life.
So true.
Well, Psalm 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of God, right? I mean, you're onto something here clearly about your love of nature. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And just this sort of basic life where I mean, nobody had to teach survival skills 100 years ago. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
or 200 years ago, right? I mean, everybody was just trying to survive for
Right.
like
Yeah.
thousands of years. And now,
Right.
and I always joke I'm an avid indoorsman. Okay, I'm an avid indoorsman. I need all the training you've got. I need a stack of books. I need to get whatever you're doing. I need to come learn. Uh, we had another buddy of mine on the podcast, Jim DeBose, who started a foundation to support the national parks, and he just loves getting people in nature. And he told that
Yeah.
story, and I was his first victim on Eco Joy, where he took me camping, and I'm like a fish out of water. I was just terrible. I probably wrecked his. I'm snoring. I mean, the whole thing was just awful. We loved it, but awful in a good way. I mean, just broke all the kind of things. So I think you're onto something. But it sounds like in this sort of spiritual journey you've been on, that is a new thought, a reasonably new. You always love the nature, but connecting that with your faith seems to be kind of a new thought, and it's kind of exciting to see where God might take that. And it's okay, like if you don't know exactly where that takes you, but are you thinking on new projects you're doing, or are you working on any TV shows now, and how do you think you might try to integrate that, just even if you're brainstorming?
It's a great question. And I mean, we are, everything we do, we are now tying to our faith. I mean, we literally don't, I mean, it's, before our faith, our faith was so surface level,
Right.
but we want Jesus in the heart of everything we're doing. We see, like I said earlier, we've tasted, we've drank the good water, we've seen the light, we've felt the fire, and like we realize that he makes all the right decisions and we make all the wrong decisions, and so
True.
we want him at the helm of everything. We put him at the head of our business. We put him at the head of our household. We put him at the head of our finances. He can have it all because I trust him 100% with his decisions. In fact, I don't even want to make decisions. It's like just send me those. Just tell me what you want to do so I can just do it right. And so we have tried to integrate our faith into our orders, we rebranded the Creek brand specifically around the idea of faith not fear of the wilderness. And
we send prayer cards with every
prayer
product.
cards in every order. I mean, we pray for our customers on a regular basis. We send video prayers to our customers who everybody's struggling at some point, and most people are struggling all the time, and so we try to look at every aspect of our life as, how can we integrate Jesus and the kingdom and that purpose and that principle in everything that we do with our kids, with their school, with I mean, literally everything. And we don't, like I said, we don't have all of the answers to that yet, but
we feel like we're just getting started.
But I do have this show. I do have this show dream. Okay, so
let's hear it.
I've gotten some no's, but I
of
believe that Jesus will give me a yes, because I have this show concept called, and I'll just say it. Normally people keep these things private, but I'll just say it. So I have this show concept called Survival Impossible, where I take people out into the wilderness on grand adventures, but these people are the people that you would least expect, or at least they would least expect themselves to ever be able to have an adventure like that. People who think that is not for them. They watch it on TV and they would love to do it, but that's not for me because I'm blind. That's not for me because
I have one arm, or
I've got
no
one
leg.
arm because I'm in a wheelchair. That's not for me. That's not for my son because I'm a single mom and I don't have any money. That's not for me because I was born in a city and I've never stepped foot into the wilderness, but it calls to me, but that's not for me. And my concept is to bring these people into the outdoors and tell them it is for them
until they do it.
I mean,
you make sure
I made this for them, and I'm going to be your guide, and I'm going to take you on an epic adventure. And at the end of it, we're going to shock and awe you with something amazing. you know, that
Yeah.
impacts your life in
Wow.
a powerful way.
That sounds awesome. That sounds awesome.
We're trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would just like to encourage you, Creek and Sarah, that I just see so much passion and so much courage and generosity, and you ooze inspiration to others in this season of your life and moving forward. Just doing what you're doing it's amazing how I believe you're going to continue to influence families, individuals in impossible, by our standards, impossible ways.
Yeah.
I would love for just 2 seconds to give a shout out to this amazing woman next to me, because, you know, I I take the spotlight in a lot of what we're doing. You know, I'm the one on TV, I'm the one on the postcards and the things like that. But
I'm
like
okay with
this woman right here, we are such partners, and God made us
Mm-hmm.
as partners. Like we never saw it, you know, like we just butted heads and battled like two old stubborn rams
Yeah,
for so long,
we did.
you know. But now, like, we work together in such a powerful way. We see God's weaving of this fabric in our marriage. You know, we
That's
see
awesome.
how he used all of her experience in graphic design to make our business look better and to polish everything up, because I'm a very bull in the china shop kind of guy, where I just go in and I'll start anything right away, just get it done. And she polishes it up and makes it look, you know, and it's just like you know, it's just a match made in heaven, you know, for
Wow.
business and on a personal level. And, you know,
Well,
I
listen.
just love this woman. and I got to give her credit where
No,
credit
I mean,
is due. That
I'm
I
glad
would
you
not
brought
be
that
where
up.
I'm standing today without it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think the other dynamic here, I mean, you got so many, you know, big moments that are bringing you closer to this, integrating your just whole lives with Jesus, the business, the marriage, all those things. But just running a family business with your spouse is hard enough. So,
Yeah.
Sarah, okay.
We fought in the first 8 years of our marriage about that.
What's that?
We fought about the first 8 years of our marriage with what
So,
I thought looked
you know,
good and what he didn't.
yeah. Well, so, Sarah, how would you describe what it's like to work together in the business?
Well, I love it now. It is. It's like it doesn't skip a beat anymore. He trusts me and I trust him, and there's like no hiccups. He's the perfect client now.
Yeah. I'll just say yes.
Oh yeah, he just says yes to what I do.
That is the perfect client.
Yeah.
Just do what I say. It's very simple. Yes, exactly. All right. Well, as we wrap up, and I'd love to hear, Sarah, why don't you go first? You know, we always try to ask at the end just some practical tip. You know, there's so many aspects to your lives, the marriage redemption, all of those kind of things that have happened. But it could be business, it could be whatever the Spirit brings to mind. But if for somebody behind you on this journey, what would just be a practical tip, something they can do tomorrow to take a step in the right direction?
You don't hold on to the stuff, the grudges, the bitterness. Give grace. I think giving grace to yourself and to your partner is like the best thing. That has helped. I think that's helped us so much, just giving each other grace, just in all aspects.
And that's not a human thing to do. Let's be honest.
No, it's not. But it's helped us.
Exactly. No,
we did not used to give each other grace. And that was just letting it all go. It's just so much easier. It's so much better.
I love it. Because wouldn't we love to receive that?
Yes. And when you give it, then you do receive it. And you don't realize that.
Yeah, it's kind of toxic.
You don't realize
yourself.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Creek, what would you say as a practical tip?
I've experienced all the highs in life. You know, I've had all the wins that anyone could ever hope for, you know, but I can say with 100% certainty that there is nothing that feels like giving. There is nothing. There is nothing that gives me the peace, the satisfaction, the feel goods, the
wow,
all of the things that we look for, that we strive for as a human being, all of the things we need that we try to get from other places. There's none of that has ever given me that except giving, whether it's just giving, buying someone's goodwill purchase, or giving $650,000 to a ministry, or giving a monthly donation. My tip would be to level up your giving, because you can never outgive God.
Mm-hmm.
And he will just shock and awe you every single time. And even if at the end of the day, it is only for the feeling of just like peace and satisfaction and all of the things that come with that, it is worth it.
Yeah.
It is worth it. I've never been in a moment of my life where I've had so much peace. And I've never been in a moment of my life where I've given so much away.
Right.
And they are directly related. It took me forever to realize that it's not mine. It's not mine. And it took me forever to realize that. And so I would hearken back to Jeff's comment earlier. You got to just get wet. I believe that done is better than perfect. Don't overthink it. Just do it and do action, and just done is better than perfect, and just get wet when it comes to giving, and just get a taste of the good life.
Hey.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. I'm thinking about somebody trying to build a shelter, and you're like, it's starting to rain. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just put some freaking wood on that thing. Okay, we got to sleep under this sucker.
I think I've said that exact quote.
Exactly. Just get started. Well, this has been a joy, and I just love these practical tips, which are back. By the way, they seem so basic, but it's so opposite of the way. This is exactly why we're doing this podcast. Is the advice is right on the money and opposite of the world. Like, everybody wants to hold on to a grudge. Hey, it's not fair. Like, we want things to be fair, and releasing those things and releasing the grudge, what a gift to yourself, but also to the other person.
Yeah.
And then the joy of giving, experience the joy of giving. Wait, I thought it was if I got more stuff, I would be happy. Isn't that what the world tells you? You know what I mean? And so, like, it's the releasing of it as opposed to the gripping of it that actually leads to joy. So it's just such a beautiful way of summing this up. So just thank you guys both.
Thank you,
Sarah, for sharing your story.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Jeff, always good to be with you. And thanks everybody for joining us on this week's Generous Business Owner Podcast. Check out our website, share it with a friend, subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Thanks everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Generous Business Owner Podcast with Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt. Make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can find the guest contact information in the show notes. Stay tuned for the next episode.